name is Shay Woolf, and I'm going to be giving a speech about capital punishment. Capital punishment, or the death penalty, is a very severe form of punishment. You can be eligible for capital punishment when you commit murder, treason, genocide, the killing or kidnapping of a congressman, president, or Supreme Court justice. When talking about this, it can be split into 3 different sections. You can consider the morality, utilitarian, and practical pros and cons, and I'm going to argue that the pros outweigh the cons. Charles Manson was sentenced to death, but shortly after, the death sentence in the United States was abolished, and he escaped from prison right after being moved to a high-security unit. After he escaped, he committed more crimes, and it is thought that he has even committed more murders. This is one of the reasons that I believe that the death penalty should not be abolished. This is relevant to today's society because it deals with the safety of our community. And I am a credible source because I have done a lot of research on this topic specifically. I have found that it is actually a very controversial topic. And I also have the help and opinions of my father, who has been heavily involved in law for over 20 years, and he has been a magistrate judge for over 5. He has given me his opinion that it is essential for the sake of society that we have this law in place. If we change our beliefs about this topic, we can legalize it in more states and turn our communities safer. Quote, "Criminals do not die by the hands of the law, they die by the hands of other men." Quote. This statement was made by George Bernard Shaw. He was a well-known social activist in Ireland who was fighting for capital punishment. This rings true because it isn't the law who caused the criminal to lose their life, it was the criminal who did that to himself. In our legal system today, it is argued that the death penalty is not a notable deterrent for crime. The average time a prisoner spends on death row is 19 years, according to an article written by John Gramlich for the Pew Research Center in 2021. That's a really long time. In this time, appeals can be made and new evidence can be found, but the passing of this time creates little results. As a society, we've had the death penalty for a long time. According to an article written by the Death Penalty Information Center, it says the first established death penalty laws date as far back as the 18th century in the Code of King Hammurabi of Babylon. So why in recent years are we trying to replace this practice? When I think of the laws, one of the first images that comes to my mind is the legal scale. It symbolizes that the law is to be fair and deal out equal punishments. In one of my resources, it says that homicide or murder is one of the most common actions that is being dealt with by capital punishment. Choosing what is deserving of such a harsh punishment, like the death penalty, would be tricky. Making specific outlines and laws that can determine if the crime is deserving is necessary. This will be controversial and sometimes seen as discriminatory, but that goes for most things in life. I believe that if it is done justly, it can be executed. And the rate of reoffending felons is very high. It stands at a whopping 74.2%. In an article called Capital Punishment Saves Lives, written by Stephanie Poirier, it talks about how 3.3% of its prisoners were criminals who committed crimes worthy of capital punishment. And they continued their crime spree by committing homicide and aggravated assault while in prison on a long-term sentence. We need to take action for our own safety by voting for this to be legal in states elsewhere. I am aware that it has been legal in Idaho for a long time, but I am also aware of our age and our ability to make a change in the legal system. So I challenge you to keep an open mind in voting for this to stay in practice. The death penalty is the only moral action that can be taken to punish these crimes that earn these sentences. The death penalty can also provide closure for families and victims. Imagine that you had a family member that was the victim of murder. Picture yourself in a courtroom and you hear the judge and jury showing mercy to somebody who showed the complete opposite to your family member. That isn't justice. In defense of capital punishment, it is the law's obligation to protect society by not letting dangerous criminals like that back into the public. In one of my sources, it is estimated that when an inmate that is convicted of murder or other serious crimes is put to death, it saves anywhere from 3 to 18 people from being the victim of another crime. In an article called Death Penalty Fast Facts, published by CNN in 2023, it says that there are 2,363 people on death row in the United States as of October 1st of 2022. And in another resource, it says that 95.9% of prisoners on death row have been found and proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So going through this punishment will help the government spend less money on feeding, housing, and taking care of people for free. In conclusion, capital punishment should not be abolished for the sake of society. This keeps law-abiding citizens safe from those who cannot seem to do so. We can vote to legalize this in more places to keep ourselves and others safe. I will leave you with this quote stated by Governor Ronald Reagan at a national convention. Quote, "We must reject the idea that every time a law is broken, society is guilty rather than the lawbreaker. It is time to restore the great American precept that each individual is accountable for his own actions." End quote. And I think the time to restore that precept is now. Thank you for coming to my speech.